first up, shout out to two of my chatters. First up, The Exile, which kind of brought this to my attention. The 0 mana tech. I think there was also a Reddit thread about this. I don't know where this originally came from. And second, Aru, which helped me out because he had a similar build to this and kind of gave me some tech. Now, before anything, what are my goals with this build? I didn't want to play Archmage, but I wanted to play a caster. How is that possible? Well, most people told me go Berry Invocation. It's a pretty established archetype. You take self damage, you spam life recovery from your flask, and you basically just make it work with Berry Invocation. You just spam either Spark or Comet or whatever. I didn't really want to do that. The other option was basically just kind of be a little bit fancy. And the third thing I wanted to do is I wanted to farm Simu because it was kind of a blind spot for me. So on this build, we're getting our mana to 0, and this is not just a gimmick. It actually has some advantages, I swear. So we're getting to 0 out of 0, and the thing about Infernalist is it has a node called Pyromantic Pact. Pyromantic Pact converts your mana to Infernal Flame, and now instead of paying mana, you gain Infernal Flame. And the downside is supposed to be that whenever your Infernal Flame fills up completely, I'll just put it on screen how it usually looks, like this orangey thing that fills up. Once you go to full, you take your full HP, so energy shield and life as damage. And that sounds spooky, but it's quite manageable because it is fire damage, so you go through your fire res. So in reality, if you don't stack any max res, you take 25% of your energy shield and life, and you can scale that down with maximum fire res. So that's what usually people are doing. They get to 90 max res, and they basically take 10% of their HP. Now, there's obviously issues with this. You can't infinitely spam stuff, otherwise you're going to get completely knocked out. However, what you can do instead is go to 0 mana. See, when you go to 0 mana and you convert that to 0 Infernal Flame, you can never reach full Infernal Flame because you're always just on 0. Statically, right? So what happens is you never take damage. So if you look at the left side of my screen, you will see there is nothing happening to my energy shield or life. And this has quite a few advantages and also a few disadvantages. Upsides first, you can actually use energy shield recharge as it is usually used in energy shield builds. You don't take damage, you don't interrupt it ever, so it actually happens. First thing. You can use Grim Feast. Usually, when you take self damage, you cannot really go over your maximum because that over your maximum will always get pegged down by the self damage, so Grim Feast is basically worthless. The third upside is it saves a ton of jewels, which is quite a big deal. People usually go for maximum fire res jewels, so +2 the maximum fire res, and they use those round about 5 times, and then they get the rest somewhere else. But losing 5 jewels is quite big, and I mean losing. So you lose the crit damage, you use stuff like extra meta energy, which is ridiculously strong on this build, for example. And the reason this is a big deal is because you only get maximum fire res on rubies, and rubies are supposed to be the melee jewel. There is literally nothing here. If you are a spark build, sure, you get skill effect duration, which is nice, but then you're still looking at like a 2-stat jewel instead of some of those 4-stat jewels that you can scale into endgame. Also, you can proc as much as you want. Even on those Barrier Invocation builds, you still have to be mindful of how much you're proccing and at what frequency you're proccing, and exactly your mana cost and exactly how much energy shield you have. Doesn't matter here at all. And one upside for me personally, you don't have to spam mana flasks or life flasks, which means, yeah, this build is truly a one-button build. Everything I've done here is I've put on custom minion def to automate. My Curse, my Eye of Winter, my Frostwall, my Comet, everything's on cast on minion def. We're gonna go over that in the gem section. But I literally just want to go through, cast fireballs, and that's it. However, there's also downsides. The first one is you sacrifice your glove and helmet slot and a few passive nodes. So if you look at my helmet, this is Innsmouth. It has 30% reduced maximum mana. Very little beside that. I have Nocturnal Caress, which does have skill speed, which is nice, but I'm using it for the reduced maximum mana. This could be a good pair of gloves, right? So sacrifices have to be made. The second thing is I can't really go Mommy Demon form because if you take no self damage, you can't really recoup. See, Demon form basically makes it so you take damage over time, and there were some cheeky things in the past that you could do with going very low life, and it is still possible. It's just way too much investment for a build that's already so strained on uniques, and overall, some of these wands are so ridiculously cheap. I mean, cheap for what they do. So in general, losing my weapon slots also not the biggest thing. Demon form is still very nice. You can dodge around, but you cannot use it on this build because you take no self damage, so you can't do the recoup tech. And at the end, it's absurdly annoying to gear. Now, usually when people say absurdly annoying, they're trying to evade that it's just an expensive build. First up, my Ingenuity doesn't do anything fancy. It literally just gives me a res and a little bit of cost speed. So there's no like reduced maximum mana here. It is not functionally needed. But in this build, the reason why it's annoying to gear is not the cost necessarily. It is these two items. You need an exact perfect corruption, which means you need to corrupt the -25 mana to -30 mana, and you need to exactly corrupt the -15 to -17. Now, it's not weighted, so maximum has the same chance as minimum, but it's, I think, as far as I know, a 1 in 44 to get it on Lactonial Caress and a 1 in 44 on Innsmouth. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a 1 in 4 and there's 11 outcomes. So that is just extremely, extremely weird. And there is some people who actually price these and they have it at like hundreds of divines. Don't fall for that. If you really want to play this build, either pick them up yourself and just start corrupting them, or yeah, put them on your filter. I would 100% do that, or just buy up cheap ones and try yourself. But yeah, this is the really annoying part of the build. And yeah, that's the perfect segue. 104% reduced maximum mana. So why 104%? Because the pathing node here gives 4% increased maximum mana, which means you have to work against that as well. Otherwise, there's going to be some mana left and you're screwed. Now, you have to get the -30% on Innsmouth, -17% on Lactonial Caress, as I already said, 30% reduced, 17% reduced, and everything else we get from the passive tree. Let me explain. So, first, you get reduced maximum mana from these two nodes. That's 10%. Another 10% here. We're at 20%. So, now we still have 37% left. We get 10% reduced mana here, 27% left. Now, this cluster down here has 3 small nodes with 5% reduced maximum mana and 10% reduced maximum mana as well. Now, so that means technically we have 2% to go, but these are actually 6% because I have a increased effect of small passives in radius, which also counts for negative effects. So you need a time loss jewel, doesn't matter what, it just needs at least 20% increased effect. And then this 5 here, you can see it's 6 there. Now, the astute observers will also have noted that there is actually another way to get reduced mana, which is Wolf's Protector. If you go here and you click on reduced maximum mana, you will see it goes all the way up to 30% reduced. The problem is, now you're using a 100 energy shield body armor. Is that a good idea instead of getting like 900? Well, the answer is just no. If you did not have Innsmouth and you did not have Lactonial, I don't even think I would play the build, right? You're just gonna be squishy. So that's why I'm saying it is annoying to gear. You might think, oh, you can be clever about this, but then your build is just gonna fall over. So personally, not for me. You can experiment around as like a budget option, whatever you want. So okay, we got this shell. We basically don't spend anything, but what do we actually use it for? You've already seen my cost on Minion dev setups. I actually opted to go for something similar to what Kai did right about 3 weeks ago on his Stormweaver, and that is cost on Minion dev. So shout out to him. Very good explanation of the mechanics as well. Now, whenever you cast a fireball and you have Raging Spirits equipped, you get these skulls right here. And these skulls count as minions. Now, whenever those minions die, they will feed into cast on Minion def, as you will see right here, and certain things will get casted. So cast on Minion def says you gain energy whenever a minion dies. Despawning doesn't work. They fixed that very early on. It actually has to die. Now, you don't want to wait around while they like trickle down. It's just not sustainable. So what you do is you take Fire Flower. Fire Flower says take 120 damage when you ignite an enemy. If on the passive tree you take Necromantic Talisman, that goes to your minions. So now your minions will take 120 damage whenever they ignite an enemy, and that is what Raging Spirits kind of do. So that means they just immediately explode when an enemy is nearby. Now, I'll just show this off to you real quickly. I'm in a Delhi map, so there's an enemy here, and once the Raging Spirits spawn, at least the ones that spawn near enemies, they explode immediately. So a few will spawn near the walls, a few will spawn away because they will spawn wherever the fireballs go. So that means on single target, if they're against the wall, that is a pretty big deal, which is why Frost Wall is such a big deal. So yeah, that's basically how it works. The clear on this build is very, very good. In general, while I'm streaming this, it's a little bit rough for the upload. It is not the most PC-friendly build, but yeah, this is how it looks like. Now, everything here is subject to change and will probably change. I will link down a planner below, but in the next few days, we're kind of going to min-max this a little bit further. So yeah, I'll make a full guide eventually, but Fireball for now, Scatter Shot, Arcane Tempo, just extra speed, extra utility, get more projectiles, more Raging Spirits. Although the Raging Spirits do cap out at 11, just make sure you know that. So stuff like Wild Charge is a little bit overkill, but it depends on the situation. Mobility, just so you're faster. Ricochet, this also works off of frost walls. And then acceleration. Acceleration is only for mapping, I would say, because when the fireballs proc ahead of you, that means stuff gets frozen ahead of you, and the comets proc faster, which makes your clearing a lot better. Our 3 custom minion def setups now. In general, Comet is the superstar here and the main damage dealer. I just figured out earlier, in the thing I just showed you, I actually had Conk effect in, so I had very low AoE. But that is something you swap out between bosses and non-bosses. And other than that, the stuff that always stays in is Spell Echo, Energy Retention, and Impetus. I'll have to play around a little bit. Some people said there are breakpoints with Impetus, which I don't really understand yet, and I don't think there are any, but maybe there are. We'll have to check it up. The second custom minion def setup is Frost Wall. Here, yeah, just all-star, does a lot of damage, diverts your fireballs for more direct procs. Basically, if the frost walls are on top of the enemy, that means the raging spirits spawn on top of the enemy. It is ridiculously strong. Ingenuity for the reduced CDR. Spell Cascade to get more. Fortress. The way this aligns the frost walls, it is actually very beneficial, especially for single target. I don't think this is necessary for clear though, just FYI. And then cold exposure for the minus res. On our last setup, this one is very much not mandatory, but I just really like automating everything, and I had the spirit, so why not? Eye of Winter gives you critical vulnerability, hyperthermia, which is your curse, a ton of extra damage with heightened curse to make it even stronger. Pierce for the Eye of Winter, and then also deceleration. I'm still playing around with this one. It's not 100% necessary. So Blink I actually have on my main hand. Currently, I don't do anything with my offhand, which is definitely not good and definitely something that will change. But I just really don't like having to press something and then go Blink. In case you guys don't know, you don't just automatically swap to your offhand if you dodge roll. Unfortunately, you cannot bind that. So you would have to do an action, so it goes to your offhand, and then you blink if you actually want to put blink on your offhand. So for now, I just have it reserved because I have the spirit. Why not? Raging Spirits. This is basically your main bread and butter. You have Infernal Legion, Minion Instability, Feeding Frenzy, and Fire Exposure is pretty much unnecessary, but I mean, I had to fill out links. Why not? Grim Feast. Very nice. And then Frost Wall. I sometimes put these down before a big boss. It doesn't really do much, but basically you can already use up your cooldowns and just put down a few Frost Walls. It helps a little bit. It's probably like 2 million burst at the start, so against the Pinnacle boss, it's kind of cute. For Ascendancy, Pyromantic Pact, look at the intro where I talk about how this whole stuff works. It's basically mandatory. And then we have Altered Flesh, which gives you nice little defense. Along the way, you're also getting 3% life notes, which is very good. And then we're scaling kind of off of life. I'm not really sure if it's worth to go for 4K life. It would be quite an investment, so maybe later, we'll see. Bidot's Will reserves some of your life, but it gives you spirit, which is very important, so we can basically use all our custom minion def. Yep, enough said. Bidot's Hand gives you a little bit of energy shield from the life you have, so in general, make sure you don't take stuff like heavy buffer. There's a reason I don't take it, because your life is actually valuable. Now, some people were asking why not Hellhound for the 20% less damage taken. Now, unless I'm incorrect here, and I saw this during mapping, this guy actually ignites over and over, and I've seen him trickle down from the take fire damage when you ignite an enemy, which you give your minions, right, with Necromantic. That is not just your Raging Spirits, that's also your Hellhound. So I think he's kind of killing himself there. I don't exactly know, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. And I don't know how to circumvent that. So if you know a way to circumvent that, maybe get a little bit of regen, you could probably drop Bidot's Hand and go Loyal Hellhound. Now for gearing, this is very annoying, but you need exactly 30% reduced maximum mana on Innsmouth and exactly 17% reduced on Loctaniel. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Some people are putting them up for hundreds of divines because they think they're funny. This is a 1x item, so just go buy them, corrupt them yourselves, put them on your filter, and if you find them, corrupt them, or just, I don't know, take this build as kind of eye candy. I don't know what to do about it, but it is what it is. Other than that, I'm using Fire Flower, which is necessary. I don't think the rolls really matter, but put Fire Quality on for good measure, I guess. All of these bonuses, even the rarity, don't work as far as I know. They go to to your minions because of Necromantic Talisman, so nothing there matters. Don't buy any expensive corrupted ones. Dynamism is what I have on here as well. This is a, I think this one costed me like 200 exalts. There's also cheaper ones, just look over them. Other than that, my wand, you want spell damage, cold damage, +5 to cold spells is the most important one. That's how your wand should start out with, and then gain extra damage, cold, lightning, fire, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter because, or you also want crit chance as much as possible. It doesn't matter because we have Sacred Flame. So Sacred Flame gives you a ton of damage as extra fire, but the bottom line here is actually enemies resist elemental damage based on their lowest resistance. So that means all this added fire damage, added lightning damage, whatever we have actually gets resisted by cold because we have hypothermia. So that's a pretty nice bonus. I don't know exactly how much better this is than a focus. I had a focus here before, and it was a tiny bit more damage, but then you have to realize you can get like 120 spirit from this as well, which gave me a lot of convenience for blink. I don't think if you put your blink on your offhand and you maybe cut this and you self-cast these, you can do that if you want to. Then you could cut the offhand, go for focus, get a little bit more defensive. That is what I did, literally what I did before. I just feel this is a little bit more comfy. Body armor, as much energy shield as possible. Our rings, all you want is cast speed. As much cast speed as possible. And everything else will just revolve around getting resistances. Don't forget that you basically are running 2 duds on your gear, so you have to make up for that on all the rares you have. Now, if you have an ingenuity, even if it's just 50%, it's already better than any other belt. So yeah, just go for an ingenuity if you have the money. Otherwise, a belt with charm slots would be nice, or just belt with resistances. Your boots, get resistances, get 35% movement speed. It's basically it. Energy shield, obviously very, very strong. Currently sitting at 6k, while mapping with Grim Feast like 12k. You definitely want a anti-freeze charm. Anti-stun is actually not that bad because we still have a little bit of life left because we're not CI. So you don't really need to do much there. For the passive tree, this is still something I'm figuring out right now, but this is what I currently have. Like I said, you need to get to the left side here and take all these reduced maximum mana nodes. A lot of people have said that it's actually a pretty big deal that I have to path down all the way. One thing you'll have to realize about pathing is as long as you're grabbing jewels along the way, it's not as bad as it seems. Jewels on this build are worth around about 3 points. I'm also going to eventually pick up this one, and I'm eventually going to pick up this one. And also you have to realize that these nodes, usually the reduced maximum mana and the increased mana cost are downside. So these nodes are actually cracked. You get way more than on a normal node. So these also kind of make up for this travel. And yeah, this travel you just have to take. You get the strength nodes down here, as I explained in the intro. Other than that, all this AoE really helps out a lot in terms of overlaps and in terms of clear in general. I think if you're only doing Simu, maybe you can get away with not going for AoE. It's fine. Critical damage here as well. I do have an Against the Darkness here for extra lightning damage. Now this is so I can shock enemies. If you already have extra lightning damage on your wand, you don't need that. You can also play around on Against the Darkness. If you have more money than me, you can also play around with Spirit, get extra Spirit, get maybe a 4th cast of Minion Death is possible. It's just very expensive to get. And yeah, GG would be either Spirit plus extra lightning damage, or extra lightning damage plus extra fire, extra lightning plus extra cold, whatever, right? Other than that, my jewels kind of look like, I guess this would be the best representation. Increased damage, so elemental damage, spell damage on triggered, whatever. Meta skills gain energy is very strong, although I'll have to play around with breakpoints if there are any. I don't see any right now. I think it's just an upside, but we'll see. Increased crit damage bonus is huge, either the normal one or the one for spells, both are the same. And you really want increased maximum energy shield on each single one of them, otherwise you're kind of gonna fall behind because we're not here at enhanced barrier. Yeah, just grab all the 15%ers. I'm gonna do this eventually. I don't think heavy buffer is actually worth it for the reduced maximum life, simply because that also means we get reduced spirit. And it reduces our energy shield once again from betas, so I would not take that. But all the 15%ers are good to go. You also definitely want to go all the way to the right side to energize, which is this whole cluster is just ridiculously strong. But yeah, that's basically all I got for now. We literally just leveled to level 90, and I just did my first Simus on stream over on twitch.tv/Palsteron. To get my points, I'm gonna farm some bluffs, and then once we're like level 94-ish and I have all my jewels filled out, I'm going to start farming simulacrums with this, which is gonna be quite fun. But in general, I'll make a full build guide right now. This is a pretty scuffed version. I just wanted to try this out and wanted to get the video out as soon as possible if other people want to try it. Big tip, I would definitely put Loctanio Caress and Innsmouth on your filter. If anything, if you ever hit that reduced maximum mana. I have a feeling this is not going to go like super meta, right? Obviously, Stormweaver is still ridiculous. Archmage is still ridiculous. But it is another way to play the game. And with over a month in, a lot of people have played all the meta builds. Yeah, we want to kind of expand our horizon, try out new things, so it's pretty cool for that. But yeah, full build guide is going to come out. Probably also going to make a max roll guide about it if it ends up good. Otherwise, I have a planner right now down below, which I'm going to update even on stream in a few hours from whenever this drops. So it's going to get filled up over the next few days as well. Thank you guys for watching. And since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.